Well, hello there. This is Louis, aka Louis the Frenchie Monette, and you are listening to the Frenchie Watches. On today's episode, I got my man, Mr. Jwade. How you doing today?
I am doing very well, very well. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Hey man, thank you so much for making an appearance. We've tried in the past to be together, so let's hope and cross fingers Google does
Yeah,
not hate us and take off our video content. Because if it happens the third time in a row, it's a conspiracy, my friend.
I do believe that. Yes.
uh, all right. So look, before we start, again, do not forget to subscribe or follow this channel, Schmoes of the North, on any audio platform you're listening to. And also we have a YouTube page. If you know what the Schmodown is and you love the Schmodown, hey, we are the Canadian content that covers the Schmodown. So go ahead and subscribe to that. Before we start, Jay Wade, you have a new YouTube channel coming in, right? What's going on, man?
Currently I'm doing some stuff for Merc with the Movie blog. I do an after show for SEN Live and Mandalorian show coming up and Bachelor show. So I'm just going to keep doing that. But yeah, here coming up this weekend and this coming week, going to start doing some stuff on my own channel, the JCast Network on YouTube, and I don't know, just trying to do something a little bit different. I've been obsessed with this idea of 10-minute long shows because I like 10-minute long clips, but I was like, well, okay, well, what if there's a full show that's 10 minutes long? And so I came up with a couple ideas. One of which is a show where a friend of mine and I are going to get together on Sunday afternoons. It'll be a live show, and for 10 minutes we'll eat ice cream sundaes and watch some feel good videos. So
Nice.
that's one of the things, and some other stuff to do with music. So got a lot of stuff that I'm wanting to get out there. So hopefully everything will go off without a hitch here this week.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jay Wade. Look, obviously, people don't know you yet, but at the end of the podcast, guys, if you like, and I'm sure you're gonna like him, you're gonna love his content. Go take a look. It'll be in the description. So go on, click on at the end if you like what you hear. Okay. So yeah, on today's episode, what a movie! City of God, or City as Oh, I had the actual title and I lost it. I'm not even going to try to translate it on my own brain. But yes, this Brazilian gem of a hard to watch movie. I personally did not have time to rewatch it, but it made an impact on me so much that it still resonates with me. So we're really going to go deep in the aspect of what this movie is about, and also the criminology behind the psychology of what it is to be that much of a rebel and that much of, self-centered, to really act that way and be okay living that way, right? So there's a lot of stuff we can bite on. Now, that being said, Jay Wade, are you ready, my friend?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, so let's go on ahead and bring up the first screen. All right, so City of God. Now, let's go back up. There you go. Cidade de Deus, City of God in Portuguese. Now, the summary is City of God is set in the Brazilian favelas over the course of 3 decades. The tragic film was told from the viewpoint of Rocket, an inspiring photographer. All right, so the social context, and it's true. When you think about Rio, Brazil, you think about the festivals, the joy, heat, sun, holiday, carnivals, football, very colorful sightings, right? But the truth, the underbelly of what's actually happening is places like the favelas, the ghettos, that really are crowded. 1 million people in Rio. You got no order. It's chaos. Infections are all everywhere. You're like multiple people in multiple areas, and they're not rocket scientists. They not saying they're dumb, but their education, their social education, really is lacking. So it's a lot of me, myself, and I. The rodents are shown to be roaming around the area. There's a lot of people who are just trying to survive. Now, with that description, Can you tell me a bit of certain moments in the movie that what I'm just talking about kind of hit you, or the things you've observed during the movie?
Yeah. First of all, the thing that hit me was, like you said, just the overpopulation and the crowding. Um, is it just I don't know. I try to imagine living with that many people that close together, and there not being animosity and depression and negativity. I mean, just feeling like you have nowhere to go. You can't move anywhere without someone or something else there. Maybe that's because I've grown up in the country most of my life,
Mm,
that was something that hit me. I felt claustrophobic almost immediately. Um,
mm,
the I don't know, the drastic change is something I noticed. Also, talking about just the environment, from the beginning, when it was the time period was set a little earlier. It looked to me, at least, to be a little bit cleaner, a little
hmm.
more inhabitable, I guess. Perhaps the buildings weren't as run down looking, not as much graffiti. But then, as the characters got older and the movie progressed in the timeline as well, it just it just got really bad, and you could tell it just seemed like a generational thing. Um,
Mm.
it just got gradually worse. And then you had mentioned the runts, by the end, you're like, well, here's the next generation. I mean, what the hell is it going
Yeah.
to be like now? And it just progressively got worse. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's difficult to watch, overall, I found. So,
Yeah, but it's true because it felt like people just gave up, or like the place just gave up, right? And
yeah.
it goes to where, like the first line, there's over 1 million people, and like you said before, if you live in that kind of space, there's depression, it's heavy, right? Because not only are you yourself in a bad spot, you got over 1 million people in your area that are exactly in the same spot. So after a while, when you see like this is just everywhere, there's nothing is getting better, it becomes in your head that there is no hope in the future compared to, living separately and living in a population that has very big diversities in, in success and type of lifestyles. You see like, I want to be like that person. But it doesn't happen in those favelas or any part of the world that's in the same, right? Because being poor and being hopeless in a sense is very, very scarce. You got these people who are hopeful in nature, but a lot of the times they get screwed over because they have too much trust. And I don't know, man. It's it's a whole. It feels like a different universe. Yet it's in our own planet, right?
Yeah. And something you said when you said too much trust, it kind of triggered a thought in my head. Well, where does that trust come from? It's got to come from a place of desperation. I mean, in the
Mm,
back of your head, you've got to know that this isn't real, that this isn't actually going to make things better, whatever is in front of you, that we're dealing with. But just, you have that desperation that you feel like you can't go any lower. All there is up. So I will do or try anything I can to get myself out of where I'm at. And looking at the screen here, I'm reading the education is limited bit. Um, when you've got that many people in that small area, and you pretty much know that even if you do stay in school and write it out all the way and do what you're supposed to do, chances are you're not going to get out, sadly. So,
yeah.
in the discouragement, I mean, I hate to say it, but honestly, I would be discouraged, and I'd kind of have the attitude, I think, like, well, what's the point?
Mm,
And I just, that would be a very crappy feeling too, especially if you're someone who wants the education, like Rocket. He wants to get out of there. So,
yeah.
it's hard because it's like this really crappy and heavy feeling, um, you know, I'm sure that like Lil Z and everybody else, they want to get out too, but they're caving and accepting that this is the reality. And so they're making the best of their reality, which in their case is dealing drugs and murder and crime, violence, so on. But then you've got Rocket, and he just wants to get out so bad. He probably has that feeling like he's never going to go anywhere. He's never going to make it, but he keeps trying. He keeps trying to do it the right way. And, you know, eventually we see the end result for him.
Yeah, I mean, it goes also with saying like before, education is limited, but intelligence is not, right?
Yeah.
Education is made to you know, direct that intelligence for a very maybe not positive, but constructive circumstance, right? But what happens if the education is limited, but you have people who are very smart? They use that smart to survive. They use that smart not for evil per se, because in their head they're not evil. They're just doing what they have to do, right? And you see the Z's, you see the manipulation, you see the mind games. You to do the things they did in the movie, to be able to get in the other people's heads and make people do what they want. To have that philosophy and to know exactly what you're doing, it requires very high intelligence. It's just so disgusting, right? But again, they are products of their environment. You put them in, you know, a good part of the world where education is limited, is not limited like that, and actually serves their purpose. You know, they could be rocket scientists, they could be something else, and give them the option of not be their worst selves. But again, sadly, that is what circumstance environment gives, right? And they were in the worst times, in the worst areas, and sadly your intelligence goes to the worst place.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's extremely easy to give in to the negativity, those negative feelings of hopelessness and whatnot. And but once you do, man, once you give into that, and for right or wrong, you accept that this is the path you're going on, then it's easy to get full on into it. Which is where it gets really, really depressing, you know, because you've got the people like Benny who just, you know, he was in it, but he didn't really want to be in it. And he was only his best friend was in it, and he wanted out of it, and he was trying to get out of it, you know. So God, it's just heavy thinking about it, really. Because I've never experienced anything close to what any of these people have experienced, and I can empathize, but I can't really sympathize. Or no, wait, which one is it?
Oh, yeah. I've always been lost. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You can understand the circumstance, but you can definitely not relate to living it.
Yes. I can sympathize. Well, I don't know. Yeah. I can, in my mind, I can put myself at least somewhat in that position and imagine how I might feel. But there's no way I will ever come close to knowing how it actually feels.
But that's the beauty of this movie, right? It made you feel feelings that you would have never thought you would experience, because he put situations that you never thought you would actually see with your own eyes, or events you never thought, or characters even you never thought you would meet, right? So this movie, even though you can like empathize, sympathize, the word you want to say, like I can't really understand fully how they feel, it still made you feel some feeling that, you know, yes, you didn't live it, but it puts you in a space that kind of questions you, makes you question saying, what if I did though? Because that was a horrible feeling, and I'm just watching it, right?
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is. And I will say also that until about 2 weeks before I watched this movie, I had been my entire life stern against subtitles. I couldn't stand it. I refused to watch any foreign language movies with subtitles, until I saw, I think it's Train to Busan, like 2 weeks before you and I talked and we picked this movie, City of God. And that movie changed everything for me on subtitles. I was like, I don't know, it for whatever it was, it changed me. So when you told me that this was in subtitles, I didn't have that feeling I would normally have, where I was feeling a little deflated. I was excited because I was like, okay, well, I got a taste just a couple weeks ago of a foreign language film with subtitles, and I loved it. So like, now I want more, give me more. And this definitely delivered it, and it delivered a lot more than what I was anticipating.
Yeah, because that's a fun thing when you pass that wall of like subtitles, but when you're ready to take a step forward and be like, okay, it wasn't that bad. You realize that foreign film movies gives you a whole different perspective, a whole different way of storytelling, or just situations. Hence, City of God. You rarely see a movie like that in America, and when you do, it's not usually like very popular because it's American made it. It's like, what's wrong with that person, right? But this is a glimpse of a reality that we never lived in and probably never will live in. Well, it depends on how long COVID lasts. But anyways, but cross our fingers, never will live in.
Yeah.
And it just brings you to a whole different world. In that case, my friend, I got a couple to show you, a couple mind blowers. If ever you're down to do other shows with me for the Frenchie watches. But yeah, international movies are special on its own. Not all of them are good, man. Some of them is like, okay, this is a perspective I just don't want to watch. But those you find, man, they become gems, and you remember them, and they resonate with you for years to come.
Yeah. And something else that I just thought of that I remember thinking when I read kind of the summary or description on Amazon Prime for this movie, naturally, being from the States and seeing the movies that I've seen in my life, I kind of was thinking like a comparison to Boys in the Hood type movies,
Okay.
type movies,
Yeah.
and so that also, I think, lowered my expectations too. Not in a bad way. I love those movies, but I was just kind of like, in a way, okay, this is going to be like a Boys in the Hood in another country kind of thing. But as I was watching that, I remember thinking and laughing to myself at some point in this movie, how ridiculous that was of me to think that and just make that assumption and that comparison. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know.
I have a question for you. Now you've seen it, right? Everything's gestated. Is there now a movie that you've seen that now you're like, okay, it's more like this? Like, it's not exactly this, but there's moments that actually reminded me of this movie.
Oddly enough, there were some parts that kind of reminded me of like a Goodfellas.
Yeah, it's a gangster movie too. True, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Just some stuff kind of like a Goodfellas kind of vibe now and then. The one thing I did like as far as the movie, like the way it was filmed and whatnot, is how we got to see parts of the movie through Rocket's camera lens. And that was really cool too. Because I mean, it's weird how it's basically the same thing as just a regular camera shot, but giving it the feel like we're looking through that camera. Anyone who's taken a picture, especially with an older style camera where you actually put your eye up to it and look through it, for that moment, it really does feel like you're disconnected from what's going on. Like you are an observer and no one can see you, no one can touch you, no one can hear you. And that's the kind of feeling I got whenever we got those specific scenes. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he almost gave like a journalistic point of view, right? What you see in like in a battlefield, like, and there's someone actually risking their life to be there. The only difference is it's what they live in for real, and the person risking their life is risking their life just to live, because that's his home. But no, it did that. I remember that part. That part. Is what is the best of like the found footage trend we had a couple of years back, to be in the perspective, but without getting the gimmicky aspect of a full-fledged found footage movie. You just get these, you specifically choose moments that, having the found footage style, because this is a recording he did on the right scenes to amplify the emotion. Wow, the American, certain American filmmakers should study that scene and try to see how they can implement it if the story serves the purpose, right? That technique of just having a 5 minute or 10 minute scene with the what is recorded, it would bring a whole new elevation to a crime or war genre.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, now let's go back to what we have in front of us. Something I find interesting that I did not know. It was originally built by soldiers returning home from war as temporary accommodations and were not supposed to be permanent. And I truly believe, because we as beings are beings that emit energy, our thoughts could be weighed somehow. Like there's also brain waves you can register now. So we know there's things that, are not just as simple as, we are beings that what we can see. We actually transmit energy into objects and into rooms. So that's why sometimes when you go and work and, something's up, you're not quite sure because the feeling is off, right? And the brain actually emits an energy that you can actually feel. Now, having soldiers and putting them in a place that they live, right? And especially in those circumstances, already was depressing living in general in those areas. Having something even more negative, probably, in my opinion, dense the surrounding areas with very negative energy. And then you put in people who, are not supposed to be really there and not supposed to live in these environments because they were supposed to be temporary. You even add more negative to the negative. So no wonder shit hit the fan at one point.
Yeah. It's all good, like we were saying earlier, as time went on in the storyline, it just started to boil over more and more and more. By the end, I kind of I don't know. I was sitting there like I trying to imagine where this goes from here. I still want to know where it went from there. I want to know what the hell happened to the runts and everyone in that neighborhood and I want to. I don't
YouTube.
know.
YouTube, bro. You just search YouTube and you probably can find historical things, how it is right now.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but yeah, I will definitely do that. Anything that's built temporarily obviously is not going to be the best living conditions. And when you add on that it was for soldiers, not disparaging against soldiers, but they're trained to live with the minimum. So I can imagine temporary shelter for soldiers. It wasn't, it wasn't very luxurious or big, I would imagine. Or very, I don't know, uh, the bad vibes, man, like you
Oh
said,
man, yeah.
just the bad vibes. I don't know.
But like, give an example. When I'm out of internet for an hour, I'm like, what do? I go in the dark place. See,
Yeah.
there's so much things you can do. You can walk around safe and peacefully. There, you walk around, you can get shot. So what do? You stay indoors, or you do shady things to make sure that you're shooting the people. You're not getting shot at. So it the day by day life. You have no actual entertainment except for like soccer and stuff like that. But you don't have anything to escape from the shittiest environment possible, especially if you're born there. You don't come from somewhere else. This is the only existence so it's the only existence that exists technically in your brain. Yeah, that's rough, man. Now, talking about those individuals, you talked about them a bit before. Rocket, your Allison, maybe the lens part. What is another moment that stuck out with Rocket in your mind?
Maybe not a specific moment, but just the way he dealt with Benny and Angelina hooking up, and because he had feelings for Angelina, so he just was really cool about it. He was accepting. He maintained the friendship that he had with both of them. He wasn't a jerk, man. I guess one of the right before Benny died at the club scene, Benny and Angelina are dancing and they look up and Rocket looks at them and gives that wave and that smile that was sincere. It went to show his character and the quality of his character. So maybe not a specific moment, but that theme from him running through the movie, or through at least that bit of it, of the relationship parts.
All right, and Knockout Ned. Description is loyal, faithful, handsome, seeks revenge after Little Z rapes his girlfriend out of jealousy, then kills his family, and joins the Carrot Gang. Do you remember Knockout Ned?
Yes, I do. You obviously you feel really bad for the guy. He was keeping clean, living life. He just was a ladies' man, and you can't hold that against the guy. But he just I liked. You feel bad what happened to him and his family and everything, and you don't. I don't know. I would never really root for someone to turn bad and start doing, killing people and fighting wars and stuff like that. But in a way, dude, you've got to respect that, and you got to give it to him. He took a lot of shit and he went out there and he gave it right back.
Yeah, because everyone has a breaking point at one moment, right? That's the whole Joker's thing. Like, everyone has a price. Everyone at one point could tip the balancing scales. It depends on your environment and circumstances. And Knockout Ned, he's loyal, faithful, handsome, but there's a breaking point. And I don't encourage at all violence. But, if violence all around you and you have to act with violence, it's, at least he tried.
Yeah, and let's be real, man. Even without violence all around you, and I'll just say for me, man, it's very peaceful where I live. But if somebody were to straight up kill my family and rape my girlfriend and stuff like that, I can tell you for sure I would very seriously consider and make a plan to kill that person. As to whether or not I would actually do it, I don't know. But I can definitely relate to that. Dude, dude, that's some serious stuff. That's not like getting in a bar fight or something and then going home at night. That was for real. And that would probably break me too, man.
Yeah, I would. Now, on to the probably the most disturbing character I've seen a long time, and especially in this movie, Little Z. All right, there's a lot of things that happens with Little Z. Give me your top one moment, scene, or whatever you want for Little Z. What is it?
When he shoots Rocket's brother.
Yeah.
You could tell that was that, we could see a little bit there that he was building to that, but that was the tipping point where he was just I'm fully in this. And, I kind of saw it coming, but I kind of didn't want it to happen. And he was so young. What was he probably 8 years old or something at that time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and what other scenes? Is there anything else that pops up, or your thoughts about Little Z and where he went psychologically?
Well, just trying to think him when he kicked old dude out of the apartment and took it over. He was very scary and intimidating. Not in a like a horror scary kind of way, but just I would not want to meet, because you can tell there's a lot going on in there, and but he dodoesn't care. He doesn't care
Mhm.
about his own life. He doesn't care about what he does or who he does it to. And I just, he's a real hard one to crack for me. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about Lil Z. He's just one of those people that you just can't stand.
Yeah, no, it's there's certain people you look at and you just something's off, right? Something
Yeah,
is off.
yeah,
They went through a path that just the energy, just their eyes tells everything. That is a little Z, that's what happens when very high intelligence goes bad. There's a reason why he's the most powerful figure in favelas, right?
yeah,
There's really a reason, because not most people have that capacity of just being that top of the game into whatever they are, right? Just Little Z, instead of being a football player, he applied that skill and that level of capability to drug lord and evil person, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and the actor is like, you would almost think like he's like that in real life. Maybe he is, I don't know, but the actor fit, like he was Little Z.
I was going to ask if he was one of the locals, because I was reading somewhere that they cast a lot of the locals in some of the roles to get that authenticity. I was wondering if he was one of them, because if he was, then that was amazing, and if not, that was still amazing.
Mhm.
Uh,
If he's not, what the hell did he seen in his life, right? Or if he
yeah,
is, like, to access that kind of evil and know how to portray it, it's because to that level, it's because you've seen someone like that.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And that's a scary notion. This is where I realize, thank God we live in North America.
Yeah, yeah. We are blessed there, man.
All right. All right. So we are gonna go soon to the criminology side of it, but let's talk fast about Benny and Angelica. Your standout man.
Not Angelina. Oh, now I feel stupid.
Hey, look, you're close enough. It's something about angels, right?
Well, I'll top that. Until today, I thought the name of the movie was City of Gold. So, yeah,
I know you said, one time, like, you wrote back like, "Hey, is this the movie?" And there's like this weird documentary. It's like, no, it's City
yeah.
of God. Jwade.
That's me.
All right, so yeah, standout moments fast, maybe a good 1 minute on both.
Yeah, man. I really enjoyed Benny. Felt sad for him. He was his loyalty to Lil Z is what was his downfall in the end. If he hadn't been imagine if he hadn't grown up friends with Lil Z, he probably, would have been right there with Rocket in some capacity, on his way out a lot sooner and in a cleaner fashion. And Angelica, she was just there. To be honest, we didn't get much out of her. She just was there.
Yeah, and it's funny. No, sorry, objective. Oh no, sorry. Always in a relationship. That was her way to survive, right? Um, it, and I don't blame her. Like, I wouldn't want to go in that dark side, right? But what you do, you try to find a better life. So that's your option, and that's what she had to do to survive. But I feel so bad the things she had to see, though.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially that club scene there where Benny was killed. That was that was hard for me to see. I can't imagine how she must have felt being
Oh,
there. But that was hard. I didn't really. I knew you knew something was going to happen there. I honestly was thinking that Angelica was going to go, that she was going to die, but you knew someone was going to die there somehow.
Yeah.
I was really sad it was Benny because I was really wanting him to get out.
Yeah, no, same here, man. But it goes to show, it's not everyone makes out, and when you do, sometimes it's luck. Sometimes you create your own luck, but not everyone's gonna make it out of sad stories. Now, before we go on psychology of criminology, interesting thing, you're right. Most of the cast were not actors; they're residents of the favelas. So again, you see that kind of evil, you're able to portray that kind of evil, right?
Yeah.
At the time, this adds realism. Hell yeah, this really does. There's another movie that did the same, and I might suggest it to you. Now you're okay with subtitles. It's Tsotsi. Tsotsi is from a city of Tsotsi, if not mistaken, and it's spoken in Tsotsi, but it's in Africa, and they used their like locals, and it's such a heartbreaking and inspiring movie at the same time. I'll talk to you about it after. It's definitely something worth watching. But when you want to tell a local story and you use local people as actors, for me, it works. And it worked for that movie too.
Yes, definitely. Now I want to know exactly who was local in that movie, like what role they played and stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do some research. This movie made 30.6 million US dollars, and it only cost 3 million US. That's yeah, that shows the power of this message, right? Because again, it's hard to watch, and it's not the most beautiful shot movie, but it gave you emotions that you've never felt in a movie or didn't feel in a long time, right? So it really, really was an interesting success story from Brazil. All right. Okay. So yeah, we pretty much touched the main topics. Let's go to the theoretical side. Something I find interesting because there's some psychology behind this. You put any human, and depending on where they live and what is surrounding them, they become their surrounding. But there's a lot of theories behind it. Let's start with the classical theory. First, the theories of criminology was a behavioral pattern of the characters that is classical theory. Now, the classical theorists believed that people committed crimes after having evaluated whether the results outweighed the price they would have to pay for their acts. Now, the acts were born out of rational choices and are born out of free will. Classical theory had many elements, such as the rational choice theory and deterrence, routine activity theory, etc. Rational choice theorists postulated that an individual came to the decision of committing crime only after he had contemplated the pros and cons of his actions, his need for money, his moral values, and finally how well the target was protected, the affluence of the neighborhood, and finally the efficiency of the local police and judiciary. Additionally, such crimes were also committed if the aggressors was aware that due to this act they can achieve notoriety and a position in the society. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically this was what they believed in, right? Is there anything that stood out in that paragraph of what they thought criminology was?
No.
Okay, basically,
I'll be honest, man. Some of that was over my head.
all right. Basically saying the acts are born out of rational choices, meaning you put somewhere, right? The person says, look, I choose to be like this.
Okay, I get
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
They're born out of free will. Now, it's coming after the evaluation whether if I do this, am I going to get caught? No. Okay, so I'm going to do it. Right. That's basically what they're saying. What is now believed to be is positivist theory. Now, certain theorists, most notable Cesar Lombroso, the founder of the positivist theory, aka anthropological criminology or criminal anthropology, differed from the classical theory and based their belief on the fact that criminals in general on Darwin's model of society and use profiling techniques similar to the physiognomy and prognology. They believe then that more than the human nature, the personality and physical appearances of the offender had a major role to play in his motivation to commit such acts. Now, what they're saying is, you know, you put a population long enough in one place, right? And eventually, it's not just your circumstances. If your ancestors or, multiple of your building blocks in your body came from people who are in similar situations for generations upon generations, it's not only a choice that you make, but your brain will automatically do the assumptions that your ancestor does. And that is because they lived in the same situation. So their first reactions or what they become of it is almost predisposed to be like that. And it goes also for like ghettos and stuff, and why there's a lot of stereotypes, because sadly, they were put in situations that were lived ancestors and ancestors. And when you continue putting like that, you're setting up for that population to continue down its route, right? And dismantling it is so hard to do. People are doing a good advancement now in our day and age, but it still is so hard to do. So basically, that's what it is. So it's your genetic mapology that really determines how you act in certain circumstances.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I guess I would basically my thoughts on that is that as far as the ancestral things, I believe that I can see that things would be instinctual
Yeah.
based on ancestral past and whatnot in history. I believe that a lot of it has to do with parenting and well, maybe not your parents, but whoever raises you. So basically the parenting figures, but how you were raised as far as what you're taught is acceptable and not acceptable, and what you're taught is how is acceptable to treat people, how is not acceptable, and so on. Um, and then the environment outside of that obviously plays a great deal into it because like we talked earlier, the millions of people in such a small area, there's nothing to do. There's just, even if you want to, there's nothing to do. So that definitely plays a role too. But I'm a firm believer that in the end, you have the you have the decision to make, and if you make that decision, I think it everything you can say yes to, you can also say no to, and vice versa. It doesn't always like, well, this is how I was raised, this is my environment, so I just always have to make these decisions that come to this outcome. No,
Mm.
you can make different decisions.
Mm.
And even in some of these cases, some of these people, like Benny, for example, I'm sure there are some things he did that even in the moment he knew it was wrong and he didn't want to do it, but he made the choice to do it because perhaps it was easier to go along and do it, or whatever the circumstances were in that moment that made him make decisions like that. So that's kind of how I feel about it. There are other circumstances and influences, yes, absolutely, but at the end of the day, I think it's up to the individual whether or not they want to do something or not, and that's just the way. That's where it ends, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I like to say I think both theories can mesh together
Yes.
because it's definitely your upbringing, right? Definitely your upbringing, because that's part of your influence and your circumstance is what is teach to you, and at the same time, if it's in the if it's not well teached and it's just projecting what has been for a long time on the outside and just teaching the realities of life and not what you should do, what's the right thing to do. This is where the genetics kick in, right? Because it's easier in a sense, because it makes it I don't know how to explain this. It fits a bit easier, and it's less challenging to go against what is written, right? So if not done properly, sadly both go hand in hand sometimes. But then you got those cases of, the people who want to get out and know this is wrong, right? Just don't know how to do it. It's heartbreaking, man. And to think this goes on today's ages in other places in life. I have people I talk to, like in India. Things get bad sometimes, man, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, yeah, and when you see, like me, opening up my mind a little bit more to subtitled movies allowed me to experience this movie, and I'm realizing that, I'm thinking of the absolute worst circumstances I could think of in my country, and now I'm like, well, dude, that pales in comparison to the situations that other people are living in other countries. And that's, I've not been tone deaf. I've been well aware my entire life of how hard it is in other places in the world, and the struggles. But it's absolutely true that even if you're well aware of it, until you see it portrayed, and this being based on real events and shit, when you see it being portrayed, it just makes it more real. Not real, but it sparks that connection. You know what I mean? Between just thinking about something and imagining how bad something can be, and then actually seeing how bad it can be.
And not only,
and I don't know what I've been complaining about or what, it just pales in comparison.
Not only knowing or seeing, but also by seeing it portrayed, you actually feel it, right? And when you connect emotion to the reasoning, it adds a dimension to what you actually understand, right? So yeah, I completely agree. And another thing it touches upon, and it's true, right? Wait. Yes, okay. There's an unbalance, right? You got the very rich people, you got the very poor people. Now, the great imbalance in this institution creates anomy, and therefore crime rates increase. There's a lot more poor people than rich people. This instances substantiate claims that of other theories, such as critical theories, environmental criminology theories, and conflict theories. Karl Marx believed that due to the nature of capitalistic societies, such as in Brazil, there would be a great divide between the have and have-nots. Based on the belief of conflict theorists, postulated that due to this divide, the economically weaker society would resort to crime in order to gain access to the elite's world. So you see, like, there is something to look up to the really rich people, right? But it's so far out of reach that the only thing that seems plausible is doing the worst things possible, because there's such a divide. And it kind of reflects in today's age. We're starting to see this with, Jeff Bezos and the really rich people. If things start go awry, and at one point the part of the country is almost unlivable due to circumstances, recreating the same effect. You got a very small population of people who actually have resources and everything you would need, but then you get the rest of the population that is now struggling to get the essentials. Well, you have people that are not only bathing in essentials, but they're bathing in the most non-essential things you can have. That really creates a separation that is scary in today's day and age.
Yeah. I completely agree with everything you said, and trying to add to that would just would make a fool of me.
No, but all right.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's like how far is the gap going to happen in our part of the country? Because we're safe right now, but in 100 years, 50 years, 200 years, things have time to change and circumstances have time to flip, right? Where does the divide stop? Because at one point, if things going awry, living is going to be as hard, than in Brazil in those times, because there won't be, the only thing you can hope for is doing bad things and hoping you can get in the status that you just don't survive anymore, but you live, right?
Yeah.
So Do you have hope that we're not going to get there as a society eventually? Because we're going to run out of resources eventually on the planet, right? So do you hope that we're not going there? Or in your mind, you're saying, yeah, we're probably in a couple hundred years going to be at that point anyways?
A part of me wants to say, yeah, in a couple hundred years we're going to be there anyways, no matter what we do. Eventually, I mean, if we keep on this path that we're on now. But at the same time, I think about all of the technological advances that have been made in such a short amount of time. I mean, to us living now, 200, 300 years is a long time, but dude, I mean, not just the world, but societies, at least 2020 years. So you think of just back over the last 50 years, the technological advances that we've had is just amazing, and it doesn't make any sense. So that part of me is like, well, I don't know, man. Maybe there is hope. Maybe there is hope that via technology we can figure something out to at least buy us more time than 200 years, perhaps.
Yeah, and I envy you, sir, to have that positivity and hope. I sadly, in my opinion, is we got it good now, but eventually, um, in a couple hundred years, the landscape will be so different that I don't see us, the general population, making it the best it is, because human nature is sadly usually always opted in the general masses towards the worse and not the better when face hard situations, right? So I'm a bit more pessimistic, but I really hope you're right, man.
I do too, and if not, then we've always got Elon Musk and SpaceX to fall back on and live on Mars, perhaps. So.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I just, like, right before this podcast listened to Joe Rogan, and having an ex-pilot for NASA, a space astronaut for NASA, now working for SpaceX, and what they have to do to survive, right? Their ideas and their applications. And yeah, man, if I would do the same, if I would have that much money, and I could apply the things that I only imagined when I was younger, or when I didn't have the money, I would definitely do it, right? But at the same time, it's scary, because if you think about it, it's very limited, right? You can only do so much in so much time. So then you go in the aspect of the people who, again, are the top percentages of wealth. They have the money to go to Mars. The people who are left are the people who are left to slowly dwindle and die eventually, until there's no more life on Earth. And then you become a planet of City of God.
Yeah, that's true. Man, it's depressing to think about.
Hey, I have a new movie idea. Fuck Planet of the Apes. Do Planet of the City of Gods, man. Just show up show a movie about a population of those type of circumstances, due to the fact that all the rich people left and survived somewhere else, right?
Yeah, man, that would be insane.
All right. So look, this pretty much concludes our episode of the Frenchie Watches. Again, Jwade, I knew you were a bit nervous. You're like, how is this going to happen, man? This was an amazing episode. Thank you very much for your thoughts, your time, and your awesomeness, Jwade. So again, remind the people fast, where can they find you?
Y'all can find me on the Twitter if you'd like it, Jwade1134, JW or J, the letter J, WADE 1134. And also, if you want to check out on SEN Afterlive YouTube channel, that's a weekly show I do, 2 episodes a week there. And if you check that out, then you can hear about some other stuff that I'm doing too. So I would appreciate it.
All right, sounds good. So look, again, thank you very much. And don't forget to follow this podcast on whatever platform you're listening. We're churning out more and more stuff, especially now that we are in season 2. We have really interesting plans, and I am sure that you're going to love what we're going to put out. So again, bye-bye. Say bye to people, Jwade.
Oh, bye, everyone. Thank you.